Have you ever noticed that the people who drain you the most are the same ones you tried the hardest to be kind to? They don't scream. They don't insult you directly. They manipulate. Silently. Subtly. Precisely. They distort the truth. They smirk when you fail. They plant seeds of doubt in your mind. And when you finally snap, they look at you like you're the problem. It could be a coworker, a family member, someone you once loved. Whoever they are, the result is the same. You walk away exhausted, still trying to keep the peace. Because that's what you were taught. Be good. Be kind. Be understanding. But Machiavelli would never advise such softness. He'd ask you, coldly, are you being kind? Or are you simply allowing someone to erode you, piece by piece? Here's the brutal truth. You cannot fix someone who has no intention of changing. And the Stoics knew this too. Epictetus taught, it's not what they do to you, it's how you react that gives them power. So the first move, not revenge, not confrontation, not even boundaries. It's this. You stop bleeding energy to people who don't deserve access. Mel Robbins put it best. Toxic people don't destroy you. You destroy yourself by staying available to their poison. You weren't born to be agreeable. You were born to be clear. And clarity begins when silence replaces explanation. You think staying calm means you're strong. You think walking away makes you a better person. You believe the higher road is the right one. But here's the reversal you need to hear. Sometimes the higher road is just a graveyard, where your voice, your power, your dignity are quietly buried. They told you to be the bigger person, but Machiavelli would laugh. Because the bigger person, the one who absorbs all the damage in silence, is the one most easily destroyed. Let's be honest. You weren't being strong. You were being scared. Scared to lose the relationship. Scared to be seen as rude. Scared to be misunderstood. You didn't avoid conflict out of virtue. You avoided it because you were conditioned to fear it. And what happens when you fear conflict? You become predictable, controllable. Toxic people know this. They don't need to overpower you. They just need you to keep being nice. But here's what both Machiavelli and the Stoics knew. Peace is not passive. It's protected. With precision. With rules. With force if necessary. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, not by pleasing everyone, but by keeping his inner citadel guarded. You must do the same. Because every time you explain, justify, or apologize for having boundaries, you're opening the gates to your own fortress. Mel Robbins said it like this. You don't deal with toxic people by avoiding them. You deal with them by becoming untouchable. And untouchable doesn't mean loud. It means unreadable, unshakable, unreactive. That's the shift. You stop explaining your value. You stop defending your limits. You stop softening your voice just to sound palatable. You say, I'm not available for this. Then, you say nothing else. You walk like someone who doesn't need to be understood, because clarity is already yours. You don't ask them to respect you. You command it by showing them how little access they have now. This isn't about becoming harsh. It's about becoming strategic. Because your peace isn't a gift. It's a guarded asset. And the moment you stop reacting, they realize something terrifying. They never had control. You just never took it back. Until now. This isn't a guide for being polite. This is a toolkit for psychological warfare. And if you use these 13 cold strategies with discipline, toxic people won't know what hit them. 1. Strategic silence. Your silence is not absence. It's dominance. When they bait you, don't react. Let them drown in the noise they created. 2. The flat reply. Respond like stone. Say, noted. Or, that's your opinion. Monotone. Dry. No follow-up. They can't manipulate a brick wall. 3. The exit clause. When tension rises, don't argue. Don't justify. Just say, I'm not available for this conversation. And walk away. No guilt. No performance. 4. Gray rock method. Become emotionally boring. Don't give them energy, tone, or drama. Be uninteresting. Be dull. Be unreadable. They feed on emotion, starve them. 5. The boundary blade. Say, I don't take calls after 8. Say, I won't discuss that. Short. Final. No explanation. If they push, repeat it once, then disengage. 6. The no response delay. Don't reply instantly to provoking texts. Let them wait. Time is power. Urgency is their weapon. Patience is yours. 7. Detachment reframe. Mentally label their outburst. They're losing control. Not, I'm under attack. Don't internalize their chaos. Name it. Observe it. Move on. 8. The mirror freeze. When they insult, don't deny. Don't react. Just respond. If that's how you see it, let them stare into the void of their own projection. 9. The energy audit. Ask yourself, after spending time with them, do I feel stronger or weaker? If the answer is weaker, limit access. Emotionally, physically, mentally, immediately. 10. Neutral script loop. If they push, repeat one calm phrase. I've already made my decision. I'm not available for that. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Their chaos can't break your loop. 11. The invisible cut. No big speech. No final message. Just stop replying. Don't block, don't explain. Just vanish. Let them feel the weight of your silence. 12. Guilt reversal. When they say, you've changed, say, correct. When they call you cold, say nothing. That silence is your evolution echoing. 13. The final frame. Toxic people don't fear your anger. They fear your indifference. Because once you stop reacting, you become unreachable. And once you're unreachable, you're unbreakable. These are not just responses. They are psychological armor. They don't seek to change the other person. They protect your inner fortress. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And Machiavelli would agree. He taught that true control is never announced. It is exercised from the shadows. Quiet, clean, absolute. Because toxic people don't need to be defeated. They need to be denied oxygen. And the moment you stop feeding them your energy, their entire game collapses. You don't have to fight. You just have to stop bleeding. And once you do, you'll realize that silence, boundaries, and stillness are more powerful than any argument you'll ever win. Let me tell you a story. Not about revenge, but about control. Her name doesn't matter, because her story is yours. She was the fixer, the forgiver, the one who stayed calm while everyone else created chaos. She tolerated a partner who twisted words like knives, a man who never raised his voice, but always knew how to slice her with silence. He didn't hit her. He just erased her slowly. At first, it was subtle. He'd forget to reply to texts. He'd roll his eyes when she spoke, make her feel small in public, and then pretend it was a joke. When she tried to set boundaries, he called her too sensitive. When she distanced herself, he accused her of being cold. Every time she said no, he escalated. Anger, tears, guilt trips. He made her feel like she was always the problem. She tried everything, explaining, justifying, even apologizing for his behavior just to keep the peace. Until one night, she sat in silence and saw it, clearer than ever before. This wasn't love. This was a loop, and she'd been trained to react on command. She didn't confront him, didn't shout, didn't give a closing speech. She just stopped playing. The next morning, she didn't send her usual good morning text, didn't ask how he slept, didn't respond to his passive-aggressive jabs. When he said, "You're acting weird," she replied, "I'm not available for this kind of conversation." And then, nothing. No fight. No closure. Just distance. Measured. Calculated. Unapologetic. He spiraled. He sent long messages. He tried insults. Then guilt. Then nostalgia. All of it. She never blocked him. She just didn't answer. She had become the one thing he couldn't control. Unreachable. And what did she do with that silence? She built her fortress. She rewrote her script. She became someone he would never have access to again. Was it cold? Yes. But it was necessary. Because sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself is become untouchable to the people who think they own parts of you. She didn't win the argument. She ended the game. That is what it means. To reclaim your power quietly, strategically, without a sound, because when you disappear without warning, without guilt, without explanation, they're left alone to face their tactics, to feel the emptiness they created, to realize you're no longer theirs to break. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. She didn't vanish to hurt him. She vanished to find herself. And the moment she stopped explaining, she stopped bleeding. You didn't scream. You didn't fight. You kept the peace. And they called you strong. But here's the truth. You weren't calm. You were collapsing. You smiled when it hurt. You stayed silent when you should have walked. You apologized just to stop the war, even though the war was never your fault. And slowly, your body started talking. You lost sleep. You couldn't breathe deeply. You rehearsed every conversation in your head, over and over, because you were afraid of being misunderstood. You felt like the crazy one, like maybe it was you. You questioned your worth, your boundaries, your sanity. They didn't need to scream at you. They just had to plant the doubt. And you watered it yourself. This is how emotional control works. They break you slowly, by making you defend yourself for wanting peace. You weren't being dramatic. You were being drained. And the worst part? You thought endurance was a virtue. You told yourself, if I just explain it better, maybe they'll get it. If I'm more patient, maybe they'll stop. If I keep giving love, eventually they'll change. But they didn't, because they never intended to. And deep down, you knew. You just didn't want to know. You ignored the signs. You excused the silence. You justified the neglect. Until one day, you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize yourself anymore. Not because you lost who you are, but because you gave it away, piece by piece, in the name of being a good person. But being good should not cost you your nervous system. You thought holding on made you brave. But the real bravery is letting go. Letting go of the illusion. Letting go of the version of them you hoped was real. Letting go of the belief that if you just suffered long enough, it would all be worth it. But it never was. And now, you don't need another apology. You don't need another fake promise. You don't need to be heard or understood. You just need to stop bleeding. Because they're not confused. They're not broken. They're not doing their best. They're doing what works. And it worked. because you kept showing up to be broken again. But that ends here. You're not cruel for leaving. You're not selfish for choosing yourself. You're not cold for going silent. You are clear. And clarity, when you've been emotionally manipulated, feels like cruelty to the ones who depended on your confusion. You weren't born to explain yourself to chaos. You weren't built to absorb someone else's rage, guilt, or silence. And you sure as hell weren't meant to carry their dysfunction like it's your debt. What you're feeling now, the shaking, the anxiety, the collapse, it's not weakness. It's clarity. It's the moment your mind and body finally agree. This is not sustainable. And that is the beginning of your exit. The collapse wasn't the end. It was the truth finally cutting through your denial. And now, you get to decide what rises from the ashes. But don't rebuild who you were. That version of you was too agreeable, too forgiving, too available to people who had no business holding space in your life. That version of you smiled too often, said it's okay too quickly, let people back in just because they cried. That version needed closure, needed to be understood, needed to be liked. You don't need any of that anymore. You don't need permission. You don't need consensus. You need precision. Your new identity begins with one truth. You are no longer emotionally accessible. You can be kind, but never soft. You can be calm, but never passive. You can be silent, but never submissive. You're not working on boundaries. You are the boundary. You don't negotiate your peace. You don't explain your energy shift. You don't return calls to chaos. Because your new self isn't built to please. It's built to protect. From now on, your attention is currency. Your time is gold. Your emotional availability is a kingdom. And not everyone gets to enter. Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does at last." So while they're still trying to bait you with guilt, you've already moved on in silence. While they wonder why you stopped responding, you're 3 cities away emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. You've exited their orbit, and they no longer have gravitational pull. This new version of you, she doesn't chase apologies. She doesn't ask for closure. She doesn't write long paragraphs to defend her tone. She simply says, "That no longer works for me." And then, she says nothing else. She doesn't try to heal people who refuse to stop harming. She doesn't feel guilty for outgrowing people who chose to stay small. She doesn't need to be the bigger person, because the bigger person doesn't absorb more pain. She exits the room and never returns. And when they say, "You've changed," you say, "Correct. You didn't become cold. You became clear. You didn't lose your empathy. You reclaimed your strategy. You didn't grow distant. You just stopped being emotionally available to manipulation." This is what clarity looks like. Fewer explanations, fewer reactions, fewer second chances. It's not bitterness. It's boundaries. It's not arrogance. It's awareness. It's not cruelty. It's consequence. You are no longer a mirror for someone else's dysfunction. You are no longer a sponge for someone else's poison. You are a locked vault, a sharp line, a final chapter they won't be invited to write in. And if they ever do see you again, you won't flinch. You won't justify. You won't even remember why you ever needed their approval. Because once you rebuild yourself without them, you realize you were never weak. You were just unfinished. Becoming untouchable isn't a mindset. It's a method. Because clarity without language is chaos. And power without structure, it leaks. Here's how you move from understanding to execution, without ever raising your voice. 1. Use declarative boundaries. Never say, "I'm sorry, but I can't." Say, "I'm not available for that." Don't say, Maybe we can talk later. Say, this isn't a conversation I'm willing to have. Boundaries that beg fail. Boundaries that declare stand. 2. Remove explanation. Every extra word becomes a crack. Toxic people don't argue with your decision. They argue with your reasoning. So stop giving them material. Don't say, I need space because I'm overwhelmed. Say, I've made my decision. Then stop. Let them drown in the silence. 3. Weaponize stillness. You don't owe urgency. You don't owe real-time replies. You don't owe emotional clarity on demand. If a message triggers you, wait. 24 hours. 48 if needed. Say nothing. Let their power evaporate with time. 4. Calm confrontation phrases. When provoked, don't match energy. Neutralize. Say, that's not something I'm going to respond to. Or, I won't be continuing this discussion. Short, final, clean. If they escalate, leave. Don't warn. Don't signal. Just exit. 5. The no-loop rule. You don't say it twice. If they push your boundary again, disengage. I've already said no. End of interaction. No debates. No follow-ups. No emotional refunds. 6. Protecting your time. Toxic co-workers. Say, I don't handle work communication after hours. And enforce it. Don't explain. Don't reply just this once. That's how the door reopens. 7. Emotional reset sentences. To ground yourself when guilt creeps in, whisper, I don't owe what they expect. Or, my silence is not me being rude. It's me being disciplined. Because guilt is the leash, and silence is the release. 8. Tactical disengagement. If they cry, if they rage, if they blame, say nothing. Walk away. Let them perform alone. You're not the audience anymore. You're not even in the room. 9. Pre-programmed exits. Keep phrases memorized, no thinking under pressure. I'm stepping away now. This isn't productive. Let's reconnect another time, maybe. I said no. Let the script protect you. Cold repetition breaks hot chaos. 10. Don't ask for understanding. They don't need to agree. They don't even need to get it. Clarity doesn't beg. It moves. Say, this is what I've decided. Then say nothing else. You're not looking for approval. You're enforcing protocol. Every sentence you speak from this place, this fortress of self-control, becomes law in your emotional kingdom. And when they realize the door no longer opens, they'll try to pick at cracks. But there aren't any. Because this time, you didn't build from love. You built from strategy. And it shows. Fast forward. 2 years. 5 years. 10. You're not explaining anymore. You're not overthinking. You're not walking on eggshells to avoid triggering someone's emotional tantrum. You've outgrown the game. You no longer flinch when someone goes silent on you. You no longer shrink when someone calls you too cold. You no longer need to prove that you meant well. Because now, you don't perform kindness. You define it. And your definition includes one rule. I don't harm myself to keep the peace. They still talk about you. They say you changed. That you disappeared. That you became distant. Good. Because distance is how power reclaims its throne. You don't run into their circles anymore. You're not in the group chat. You're not showing up just to keep things civil. You've burned the old access points. And now, you're respected. Not because you demanded it, but because you enforced it. Without noise. Without a scene. Just clean exits. And doors that no longer open. This is your legacy. You don't explain. You don't return. You don't leave breadcrumbs behind. You simply disappear. And the version of you they remember, the one who tolerated too much, apologized too often, explained too deeply, she doesn't exist anymore. She's been replaced by someone sharper, colder, clearer, a version who doesn't check who's watching, who doesn't wait to be understood, a version who doesn't announce boundaries. She becomes one. They thought they broke you, but all they did was teach you how to never be touched again. This is what emotional evolution looks like. Not louder, not angrier, just gone. There is no parade, no applause, no tearful goodbye, only silence. Clean, cold, final. You don't write the final message. You don't explain your exit. You don't leave one last paragraph just so they understand. Because understanding was never their goal. Control was. So now, you take away the only thing they ever truly wanted. Your participation. You don't fight. You don't scream. You don't slam the door. You let it close. Quietly. Like a general walking away from a battlefield he's already won. You don't vanish to prove a point. You vanish because the point was already proven. Every time they tested you and you stayed. Every time they disrespected you and you forgave. Every time they hurt you and you explained. Not anymore. You leave. Not in anger, but in clarity. Not to punish them, but to protect you. Because now, you know the truth. The people who keep hurting you do so because they still have access. And when you shut that access off, they will spiral. They will rage. They will tell their version of the story. Let them. Let them say you changed. Let them say you're cruel. Let them call you selfish. Those words are weapons that no longer pierce your armor. Because this time, you don't justify. You don't explain. You don't even flinch. You've rewritten your rule book. And the new rules are simple. No reaction is the loudest message. Silence is the final verdict. Distance is the ultimate power. You're no longer fighting for closure. Because closure isn't something they give you. It's something you declare when you decide it ends. And this ends. The chapter. The story. The game. You're not the same character anymore. You've evolved. Sharper. Quieter. Stronger. And that's the part they never expected. That the same silence they used to manipulate you would be the silence you'd weaponize against them. Power doesn't announce itself. It exits the room and never returns. One day, they'll speak of you. They'll say, she changed. She became cold. She disappeared. And they'll be right. Because you had to. You stopped setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You stopped bleeding just to prove you had a heart. You didn't leave to teach a lesson. You left because the lesson was already learned. You don't owe them a goodbye. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them your silence explained. You owe yourself peace. You owe your future protection. You owe your soul respect. And when they ask what happened, there will be no message, no warning, no drama, only this: a boundary drawn in steel, a silence that cannot be baited, a door that never opens again. Because power doesn't shout, it disappears.